phenomenon that has started way before this new mechanism of artificial intelligence, which is the increase in inequality in all of the wealthy countries. So this graph is from 1980 to 2016, so if you want, it's a pre-AI graph, which shows the evolution of income growth by percentile across all the world regions from 1980 to 2016. And you can see two things here. On the one hand, in poor countries, things have actually been looking up for a lot of these periods. On the other hand, the very, very rich have been doing better and better. And in the middle, there is a squeezed bottom of, in the US and Western Europe, of inequality increasing and people in the middle class and the poor in those rich countries becoming relatively poorer and poorer. And this is something that is kind of coming for Korea now. It's kind of what we also see in the increase in inequality in Korea today. And typically the inequality before tax is very correlated with the inequality after tax. So the advent of AI requires us to rethink social protection, which is something that the Mayor of Seoul has put a lot of energy in. And this is not only with the social safety, income project, but various other initiatives. And the cornerstone is this idea of the SSIP. The idea of the SSIP, of course, relates to the idea of the universal basic income, which has been promoted in the US by many people, including Andrew Yang on the presidential trend. And the UBI has three characteristics. It's universal, it's basic, and it's an income, not a handout. The SSIP keeps the basic idea and the income idea, but removes the universal and replaces it by a targeted approach. Let me give you a few rationale for a universal basic income. A first case for a universal basic income is the idea of respect. This came out very nicely in the video that was presented. It's an income, not a handout, so it respects the dignity of the beneficiary. It's a right. The earnings from contributing, so it has earnings from contributing to a social positive environment. Unlike many transfers that are in kind or in the form of to pay for schools or to pay for this, to pay for that, it allows the beneficiaries to choose how they decide to spend the money. Many transfer programs involve conditional transfers. So, for example, you require sending children to school, you require health checkup, etc. And the universal basic income doesn't do that. Many other programs constrain what it can be used for. So we transfer in-kind or voucher for specific products, for example, for food, or in some cases you actually physically deliver food. That's true, for example, even in France, where some people physically get meals. So what is the case? So the first case for the UBI is that it respects the autonomy of people by giving them the choice about what they want to do. The second part of the case for UBI, and the one that is worth discussing in the context of this particular program, is the case for inclusion. Poor people are too often excluded from the targeted government programs that they are entitled to. For example, in Indonesia, even among the poorest people, only 2/3 of the poor applied for a generous cash transfer program, which could give them up to 13% of their annual per capita expenditure for 6 years. So if they don't apply, by definition, they cannot get it. In the European Union, 30% of poor people do not access their basic social protecting rights. So they don't even try. So what are those reasons? First, there is an information problem, so potential beneficiary might not know about that a particular program exists. For example, in Delhi, people who were randomly informed that a particular pension existed that they were eligible for were more likely to start the application process. They might also have distorted beliefs. For example, if they had been excluded all their life, they might think that this time again they are going to be excluded. For example, I met a person in France who says, if one person is going to be excluded from the program, it's me, so there is no point for me to even try. In Delhi, for example, the same program that they found out, many women thought that if they wanted to apply, they would need to pay a bribe, but it turns out that it was not true. Even when people would like to apply, the application process are often very complicated, and the poorest people, the most vulnerable people, find it difficult to deal with this complicated application process. Again, in Delhi, when people were walked to apply, when handheld to apply, they were much more likely to get it at the end of the day. The process is often unnecessarily complicated. In Morocco, I participated in an experiment where to have a right to clean water, it's not an income, but it's another government program, people needed to go to the city hall. They need often to go several times to present their papers and so on and so forth. And as a result, very few of them applied. When we changed in an experiment the procedure such that we visit them in their house and took photos of their documents, the application rate moved from close to 0 to about 90%. Even when people manage to apply, when they go to the end of the process, when they know that the problem exists, etc., sometimes they are rejected. And the rejection rates are often high because the government's own data for checking eligibility is faulty or dated, because there is corruption, also because there is systematic mistrust that the poor may be hiding something. So in France, where I come from, the main newspaper Le Monde just came out about a week ago with a study on our social welfare program, showing how the poorest people are systematically targeted by the algorithm, which are very simple algorithms, to detect fraud. And that the algorithm were kind of misdesigned and designed precisely to deal the most vulnerable people. So it says, for example, in here that 2/3 of the random check happens to touch the most vulnerable people, even though they are a minority within the people who receive the funds. And this entire story showed how the design of the checking system was completely biased against the poor. And in part, it's just misconception, not understanding the consequences of a particular coding choice, but often these choices also reflect the mistrust that we have for the poor, that there is this idea that the poor will take advantage of the program somehow or the other. Another reason for exclusion is stigma, where people might decide not to apply because they don't want to be associated with something that is for them, that is for the poor. So I conducted an experiment a long time ago on what was then called the food stamp program, and to present the program either as a benefits for working family versus something to help you. And when it's presented as as a credit card to supplement the income of working family, people were much more likely to apply than it was presented as something that was designed to be a handout. So the UBI avoids all of these reasons for exclusion because it's universal. No one is excluded, so no one needs to fear exclusion. There will still be those who are misinformed or simply unbelieving, which are often the most vulnerable. So as long as there is an application, there will be a need for active outreach. On the other hand, a fully universal income in rich countries has a huge drawback as well. And this is something that in our book, Good Economics for Hard Times, we discuss in some detail. The first one, and that's kind of the elephant in the room, is that if we want a true universal basic income, it's a lot of money. So if we go back to Andrew Young's plans, for example, for the US of $1,000 for every adult, that would be 12 to 13% of GDP. Where would that money come from? Most likely it will be cut from other governments' programs, and ultimately it affects A, how generous it can be, B, what is the final impact on redistribution, because if you cut out a lot of programs that target mostly the poor to give give it to everyone, including the very rich, as part of the UBI, that's a regressive move. A universal means not targeted. In a country like Korea, for example, that has a fantastic statistical system, you actually know who needs money, because you know who just lost their job. You might even be able to know who is at risk of losing their job, given the type of professions they have, for example. So the social support can be concentrated on the losers of social transformation. More money can be available to people who really need it, so the income can be more generous. And the resources can also be used, concentrated, other type of resources can be sent to these people to help them more. So that doesn't, you still have all of the other problems that I talked about, but it might be cheaper to, and more effective to address these issues of traditional welfare program, such as stigma, such as information, such as difficulty of application and so on, by designing the entire system by which people apply, are selected, and are rolled out in a way that is very transparent. So in some sense, between the programs that have kind of the mindset of they absolutely want to exclude the people who don't qualify, and the program that say, okay, let's solve this problem by being completely universal, you have kind of a happy medium, which is, I think, the one that has been struck in the design of this particular program, where the application system is simple, where people don't have to provide very complicated things to really show many times that they are eligible. You might get in some people who might not deserve it, but not everyone. And then you still save a lot of money compared to a universal program without excluding people that you would in a highly targeted program. So this is, getting this fine-tuning right, I think is going to be a question of trial and error. But it's exactly the philosophy that is likely to give you the most bang for the buck. Now we talked about targeting. Let's talk now about the other impacts of providing income once we know who we are giving it to. And a very big effect that emerges from the literature is the investment effect of providing people with guaranteed resources. So in Indonesia, there is now unconditional cash transfer program for the poorest family that has reduced stunting in children, so it has led to investment in the children's health. And in Kenya, Abhijit Banerjee, who is here, was involved in the evaluation of a universal basic income program, of almost universal, almost income, because it's going to be for 12 years. They compare households that receive a universal basic income for 2 years, people who receive an asset equivalent of that money in one time, and people who receive a 12-year universal basic income. And what they find in all versions of the program is an increase in productive activity in the form of investment in self-employment business. Investment in self-employment business is the largest when people got an asset, but it's also existing when people get the basic income. People also spend more on food. People have greater mental health. In general, in these studies, as well as others, show a very reasonable and good use of the funds. So that is the case for income versus in-kind, but in this particular program, people only receive money. Indonesia used to have an in-kind transfer program, which they replaced in a large-scale reform by a voucher program, a digital voucher program, still limited into what people could do with the money, with a randomization at scale, where they switched the entire district to a program versus to another. Even though this was not a full move to cash, just doing that shows you how the randomization was done across the countries. Just doing that led to much actually better targeting of the funds, where the voucher concentrate the benefit on the intended beneficiaries. And compared to an in-kind program, which was not very well targeted, this led to a decline of 20%, 43 percentage point reduction in poverty. Now, the big elephant in the room, in particular in richer countries, is this question of if I give a safety income to people, will that make them lazy because they won't be worried to feed their family now they have this certain income? Because there have been a lot of conditional cash transfer programs, which are usually not conditional on people working, but are conditional on other things. We actually have a lot of data coming from experiments around the world that allows us to answer this question. And the bottom line, which you can see from this graph from various experiments, is that there is no difference in the probability that someone is working when they get a sure income than if they don't. And there is no difference in the number of hours they work in a week. So from the evidence that we have from around the world, poor countries, middle-income countries, and richer countries, there is really no effect on labor supply of getting a sure income. In fact, in some settings, getting, and this is maybe queuing for the results we're going to see today, earning a basic income or having a basic source of funding get people to earn more. So for example, in an experiment that Abhijit Banerjee was also involved with in Ghana, where people didn't get an income but they got an asset. In fact, they had to take care of the assets. So you could see they were quite busy taking care of their assets. Despite that, when they were given the opportunity to work in producing these nice bags that you see here on the left, the people who had gotten the assets produced more bags of better quality and made more money than the people who didn't. So if you have an income effect, it actually goes in the other direction, which is it's a positive income effect. Perhaps coming from the peace of mind that you have from the fact that you are able to take care of the basic necessities from your family. And that creates the boundaries to kind of concentrate on the task at hand. So how about the poorest? So Mayor referred to the negative income tax experiment. They actually were experiments conducted a long time ago, which had very striking results, but were, strangely enough, not followed up upon, where people received a guaranteed income that was phased out very steeply as they become richer. So you would think if there was something really discouraging, that would be that, because every time people earn $1, about 75% of it were taxed away. And in the negative income tax experiment, there is almost no labor supply effect. So not only there is no income effect, but there is not even a substitution effect. Even though people earn very little of the extra money in their pocket, of the extra money they are making, they are continuing to be working. So all that is very good for a project like the SSIP project. However, it's important to keep in mind that it's not going to be everything you need. Money doesn't solve the problem of a loss of meaning that many people experience when they lose their job. And this is a graph that I found for Korea of Gallup polls over time, of people answering the question of whether or not they get meanings from their jobs. And you can see that it's coming down over time. And if automation drives the next wave of job displacement, there'll be very many more such people who have issues finding meaning in their job and who will need help to find the next job where there is meaning. And a project like the SSIP needs to be, in a sense, the rock over which people are able to find the next project for themselves. So the bottom line for us is that for the very poor country, you want to have an ultra-basic income that might be non-targeted. For a rich country like Korea, and we have to, the information to target is available. So we can use the resources that we have to effectively target, but doing so in a way that protects the dignity of the recipient. And I think this is precisely how the Safety Income project is designed in Seoul. So in conclusion, the task ahead of us is to reimagine social policy. It is both redistribution and taking care of the most vulnerable in society is both a moral imperative and an urgent political necessity, because people who are losers of the current system get upset, and the rage translates into political outcomes that are not desirable. It becomes all the more urgent because automation is likely to destroy many good jobs that it creates, at least in the short run. However, expanding redistribution might not be easy. Some people in politics are skeptical of it. So you need to show and demonstrate the example of successful redistribution program that everybody can get behind. In this context, the Seoul SSIP project provides a social income, guaranteed, targeted, create safety of mind and ability to catch up when hit by a shock. And an extra step might be needed the extra step that is needed to recover the dignity that people need from working. And in the videos we show people losing their job for a reason or another, but really wanting to get back to it. One could think of complement to this program, such as a training program, employment program that restores self-confidence and self-respect, which is often battered by the trauma of job loss and consequences. And finally, of education programs that gives access to training opportunity, higher education opportunity, like the Seoul Learn Initiative. So there is still a lot to learn. Experimentation is crucial, both for the main impact of the SSIP project and of the future policies that are going to come, future or concurrent policies that are going to come on top of it. And also for all of the plumbing questions, that is all of the detail of design that are going to be essential to its success. So I really commend you for having, transformed this hall into a laboratory for a fantastic social experiment. I think the world is watching and has a lot to learn from you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor, for your insight. And you may now return to your seat. 다시 한번 큰 박수 부탁드리겠습니다. 고맙습니다. 네, 정말 공연을 통해서 빈곤 문제 그리고 새로운 보장 제도의 필요성에 대해서 보다 심도 있게 생각을 해볼 수 있었고요. 또 마지막으로는 서울의 그 경험